I feel strongly that the summit is a fantastic example of the great work that this organization does. We are looking at different types of community hubs and placemaking this morning. Forward-thinking institutions, from banks to universities to libraries, are finding innovative ways to reinvent themselves and connect with their communities. I'm told that there are more Starbucks than subway stations in New York City. Nick Cluley and ING, or International Nederlanden Groep, which is a Dutch bank doing business in the US and elsewhere, are revolutionizing the boundaries of what a bank can be. The ING Direct Cafe at 3rd and 58th Street is the only establishment of its kind in our city. Nick has been helping refine and expand the ING Direct Cafe concept in Canada and North America for the past 5 years. By focusing on placemaking as a way to engage the community, the ING Direct Cafes are a dramatic shift away from traditional brick-and-mortar bank branches with ugly lighting. Nick's work enables new avenues for community building and participation. As director of the Toronto Cyclists Union, Nick has also personally invested in the livability goals of our summit. Please join me in welcoming Nick Cluley.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Nick Cluley, as Ashton said, and thank you for the introduction. For the past 5 years, I've been working to redefine the relationship that banks can have with physical space and reinvent the way those physical spaces can serve and enhance the neighborhoods and cities that we serve. My experience walking through Manhattan the last 2 days preparing for this presentation was probably a little bit different than most of yours. And what I noticed, as I do in many cities, is the proliferation of bank branches throughout the downtown core. These aren't small spaces, they're not set on side streets. These are places occupying the corner real estate, the prime real estate of our cities across North America. And what you see when you go inside these bank branches is a lot of dead space. You have usually an ABM vestibule in the front where there's some activity as people get their cash in and out. And actually when those ABMs were introduced in the 70s, they were supposed to replace the bank branch where they now find their home. After that, you'll find the tellers and the offices in the back, and in between those spaces, a lot of dead space that could be better utilized to serve our cities. When we started ING Direct 15 years ago, there's a little bit of history that I have to go through here. We launched in Canada and told everyone we had a new way of banking. We were a direct bank. You banked with us through the mail and by phone. And when we launched, our advertising campaigns hit all over Toronto and Canada, telling people that we were going to forgo brick and mortar locations, and in that savings, we would actually find them higher interest rates and no fees. Well, as this next picture shows, we've changed our mind a bit. And what we discovered was really interesting. The day after that launch with the media advertising throughout the city and the country, we arrived at the office expecting our phone to ring a few times, maybe the first few checks arriving as people wanted to open their accounts. But what greeted us was a lineup at our door of our corporate headquarters an hour north of Toronto of people who wanted to bank with us. So we did the hospitable thing. We offered them a cup of coffee and invited them inside, sat them down to explain to them clearly again, we're not really set up to bank with you this way. We don't provide service face-to-face. We need you to bank with us through the mail and by phone, and that's how we're going to help you save your money. And each of those people then looked right back at us and told us something really interesting. They said, I understand that. I'm going to bank with you by mail and by phone. But I'm opening my account today, and this is how people open bank accounts. I'm here at your physical location. What we had missed as we went through and replaced all of the traditional bank functions with direct functions was that there's a serious emotional attachment to the places that are bank branches. And in people's minds, those branches are actually the face of and embody what banking is. So we knew we had to address that issue, and we started over the next 11 years to open ING Direct Cafes throughout North America. By the end of 2009, we had 11 of them, like the one at 58th and 3rd Street. And in those locations, what we did is we offered people an opportunity to explore our bank, but didn't give them any way of doing transactional business at those actual locations. We continued to offer them a cup of coffee, maybe a sandwich, as well as free Wi-Fi, sort of like an internet cafe. And the people that were making your lattes would actually give you the information you needed about a new mortgage or a checking account as well. People thought it was incredibly bizarre, but they actually people came in numbers and banked with us for that reason. Not because we could provide the transactional needs of a bank branch, but because they were able to form an emotional connection to the people that we had staffed in those locations and to the idea of banking in a different way. As we started looking around in 2009 at how to build our next version of the ING Direct Cafe, there was something that had really changed the world in the last 14 years. It was the internet. Amazingly, looking back at 1996, the internet wasn't ready to support banking transactions the way we needed it to, which is why I said mail and phone earlier. And the internet gave our clients a way to bank with us online, but more importantly, it was giving communities a chance to be more involved in the businesses they interacted with. Through avenues like Twitter and Facebook, unbeknownst to us, we were the center of conversations happening online about what banks were, what they should be, what they could be. And so as we looked to build our new location, it wasn't so much about servicing the individual needs of the clients that walked through the doors any longer. We saw an opportunity to interject ourselves into those conversations already happening online and create a bit of a portal between the real world and the online communities that were already existing. In a sense, we wanted to inspire people to talk about us so that they could share the brand story as opposed to us doing it ourselves. We figured with the internet having been such a big deal that we'd find a lot of businesses engaging in this same type of model. We looked at Starbucks and IKEA and very popular retailers, and what we found is that most of them were servicing the individual needs of their customers just like we'd done through the cafes for the last 11 years. There was one place that was a bit different, and that was the Apple Store. And with the passing of Steve Jobs last week, it became really clear to me that, while he'll always be remembered for the genius of iTunes and the iPad and the iPhone, for the line of work that I've been in, there's no better model than what the Apple Store's done. They took physical locations, put out hardware or tools people could use to run their daily lives, and basically just opened their doors with no impetus to sell anything in the space. You could hang out as long as you wanted. And lo and behold, around the world, these locations are full of people every day not buying anything, which is genius. The idea is that even if you bought your iPad at Best Buy or some other retailer, the minute you get it, you feel connected to this space, to this brand, and emotionally connected to their locations. While the outpouring of condolences for Steve Jobs happened online, absolutely, through emails, through letters, newspaper articles, we saw people leave half-bitten apples and Post-it notes and other memorials around the world expressing their grief at his passing. The reason's really simple. This is how people mourn. We've done it for thousands of years. So when people needed to vent that emotion, they went to the physical locations. And it's in recreating those physical locations and those emotional bonds that we're finding our opportunities to push banking forward as ING Direct. When we built our space, what we wanted to do was create things that people wanted to talk about. And when you walk into our store, you see this. The ING Direct Cafe in Toronto, you're greeted by an Apple-like iPad table where you can access all of the online tools you need, as well as just sit and have a cup of coffee with a friend. You're not greeted by anyone at the door. In fact, the space is open to you to walk into, and our staff on hand are there to answer your questions about banking, but will seldom actually approach you and offer any kind of banking advice unless asked. We're building a space for the community to figure out what they need from us and to let us know. What we created was @OrangeYYZ, which is actually how we refer to our location both online and on Twitter. And just in the embodiment of that word, we're trying to break down those barriers between physical and digital and let the two meld and sort of collaborate to increase the amount of conversation happening about us. Here's some other pictures of what we did. It started outside. We actually cut 300 square feet away from the busiest street in all of Canada, Yonge Street, to give people a place to sit and chat. We put benches out there all summer. If they looked inside, they'd find soft seating, welcoming areas, free Wi-Fi for them to conduct meetings or host their own business at. We also kept coffee because we found an incredible strength over the years at our cafes in having food and drink as a community builder. It's a conversation starter, a barrier breaker. But what we did differently here is we actually asked customers to make their coffee themselves, to mirror what we do with our online banking. We'll train you to do it. Next time you come in, just go up and make yourself a cup. We also put a stage on the first floor. We didn't know why. We figured people might need a stage. I'll show you in a minute what's actually happened with that stage. But the idea was that we didn't have all the answers, and instead we wanted to ask the community to tell us what we could be for them. The bikes in the background here are actually really interesting. Because we're in a heavy consumerism area, we didn't want to say, just don't buy anything. We wanted to use this opportunity of our space to model the behaviors we thought were best from people living in cities in terms of their money. So every month we feature a local retailer. We offer one of their products at a discounted rate. And then with that retailer, we give 100% of the proceeds to a charity of the retailer's choosing. What we're doing is trying to show people that your dollar doesn't stop when you go to the retailer or when you put it in the bank. It keeps moving. And the values of where your money is going should align with your own. In the end, we've created a gathering place for people who want to save their money. And they're gathering. Our traffic numbers are great. People are coming in every day and using the space in unexpected and new ways. And what we had done here is really updated our traditional idea of what the ING Direct Cafe was, and we were still servicing those individuals coming in, but we hadn't really gotten to the core of interjecting ourselves into the larger communities and conversations. So we asked ourselves, how can we create something new? This is our CEO in the US, Arkady Kuhlman, and I like this quote a lot because the zero-sum thinking is something that my bosses allowed me to get very much away from. When we were building these spaces, there wasn't an impetus to say we're going to spend this much money and this is how many new clients we're going to have. In fact, it was actually exactly the opposite. It was more along the lines of what Tony Goldman talked about earlier. We wanted to create a space where the community could come in and help to lift all the boats, expecting that in 5 or 10 years, the neighborhood and community being more prosperous, so too would we as a bank. What we did then was a bit radical. We actually took the second floor of our space, a Young and Shooter, right downtown in the heart of the city, and made it a collaborative workspace, or co-working space. We've currently got 50 small businesses, charities, and nonprofits that work out of that space on a regular basis. They've got flexible desk space. These are all on wheels. They can pull them apart and find their own niche in the area to do whatever they need to do on a given day. We built them a lot of areas that they could interact with each other in and share best practices and ideas, so they didn't have that feeling of solidarity or aloneness that sometimes small businesses will have. We also gave them some small meeting rooms and breakout spaces, and because we're a direct bank, which has become an online bank, we wanted to give them some technology like video conferencing, touchscreen LCDs, opportunities to use equipment and technology they wouldn't normally have. On top of that, we wanted a way to engage the larger community. So again, in a very expensive retail environment, we created this, which is called the Thompson Block. It's a free community meeting space. Holds up to 60 people. And the idea is that we no longer are responsible for hosting events and giving people information of our own or even talking about ourselves. We give the community a space to express their ideas and what they'd like to talk about, and in that find incredible value. And what they're doing is bringing people into our space every day and introducing them to us. Another really interesting point of all of this is in 2010, we actually noticed that half of our new clients were coming from being referred by other people. Not through our traditional marketing means, but through word of mouth that people were already extending. This space plays off that exactly. We want our customers and their friends to bring new people to the bank and explore us in the same way that they once did and learn about how we do business and how we feel about the community and neighborhood. So in the end, we've rethought what is a public space. You're going to spend a lot of time the next 2 days talking about how the streets can be different, how the parks can be better. But I would purport that there's actually a huge opportunity right now, especially with the internet and all the changes it's made in our world, for private institutions to look at the dead space in their existing retail areas and make it more vibrant, make it support the neighborhood. Make your bank branch not just a cookie cutter, but something that actually fits where you put it. Make it special and make it engage the community in new ways. Here's some of the ways our space has been used, and all of these are driven by the public. None of them are our own programming. We have a weekly farmers market that happens on the first floor. We've had fundraising events that look very non-bank-like, with DJs and lots of people having a great time. Our tenants on the second floor in Network Orange are able to get together and share best practices over breakfast. They can use the breakout space, and occasionally that space actually turns into a breakdancing space. This is among the many things that I never expected to happen in the space when we were building it, but by having the openness and allowing the community to program our space for us, this is what we get. And I would suggest that the person breakdancing in this picture has a strong emotional connection now to our bank that he probably doesn't have with any other one, unless you've walked into any of the branches in town and seen people breakdancing, but I've yet to see that. We've got the meeting rooms in constant use. They're booked almost to the end of the year throughout the space. And it's our flexible workspace on a daily basis. It's not your corporate 9-to-5 environment, but it's very much also not a bank branch. And the goal with all these Network Orange tenants is that someday a few of these businesses will be extremely successful. And we don't think they're going to attribute all of their success to ING Direct. That's not the goal. But hopefully in the back of their mind, that emotional connection still lives on, and they're able to give us some of the credit for what they've done, and more importantly, feel really good about us, which we think more and more is going to be an important part of business in the future as we get more and more digital and more online. So again, if you are from an institution that has an outdated or older space and you look around and you see a dead area, realize that you don't have to have the ideas on how to make that area perfect or to better serve the community. But if you can be open and give the community a chance to tell you, you're going to find a much more lively interaction with the public, and you're going to help make our neighborhoods and cities much better. Thank you.